The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
Go to the church, Lou.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to today's edition of the Hotline Show. My name is Roger Stoyawe, and today is the 19th day of February, the year 2024. As usual, we come here every Monday evening, 7 to 9 p.m. to talk about a number of issues that are happening in and around our communities, those decisions that we're going to be making that are going to impact all of us collectively, especially in the governance space. We come here to look to have like a torch in many of these issues that are happening and try to make sense for some ordinary Ugandan what some of those issues do mean, but also for the grand scheme of things, what is it that the future might hold on many of these issues. So today we are here and we're going to be talking about issues of hereditary succession in politics, and we're going to, of course, we have the able people who have always been here on Monday. We have Mr. Joseph Ochieno, who is a leader in the UPC party. You also have Major Retired Awich Pollar, who is also the director of the external affairs of the NRM party. Later on, in just a few minutes, we'll be joined by the spokesperson of the Alliance for National Transformation and also the former member of parliament for Ntungamo municipality, Honorable Gerald Karuhanga. And we are going to be unpacking this particular issue. If time allows, we'll look at some of the issues that have been happening. We'll look at the government mergers and whether that improves service delivery to the Ugandans. But also, if we have more time, especially since we have Major Retired Awich Pollar, we'll also look at the recent developments in the UPDF establishment in 2021 and what that means, what is it. He will try to make it make sense to Ugandans. What exactly does that mean if we have the chance to get that information anyway. So without wasting any much time, I'm going to invite them to just begin at this particular issue. But also before we do that, maybe in case you have any issue that has stood out for you throughout the previous week, especially first of all, before we do, I want to apologize for last week we weren't able to have a regular conversation on Monday for one or two reasons that were beyond our control. But here we are today and we'll carry on as usual. So I'll begin with you, sir. Good evening first, and what is it that has stood out for you for the last 2 weeks? Yes, the other one and this last one, since we didn't meet.
I was very disappointed that I was not able to be here last Monday.
Yeah.
I have fallen in love with this program and this space, and I've gotten myself used to the Monday afternoon, evening rushes here. But that said, it was understandable, and definitely I knew it was not of your making. That said, you know, today is the day when many young people went back to schools.
Yeah.
In unprecedented manner, I have had for the last 10 days messages begging for school fees. It hasn't happened to that extent before. That must tell you how much of a mess NRA has turned our education system into a profit-driven thing for which they have no clue the impact on which it is continuing to entrench inequality in this country. I've called it education appetite. But beyond that, the extent to which parents are struggling, parents in this country are struggling to ensure that their children go to school. In any case, more Ugandans are recognizing the import of education as the number one equalizer in society. And so to do so, more people would want to see their children go to schools and progress with education. But that's against the backdrop of education, which has been, as I said, fully privatized, and an economy in which the divide between the rich and the poor has grown to the widest nationwide, and one in which, if you pick my Bukedi, which is now the poorest sub-region, there is no source of average income for any average Mukedi When I look around my own Agongera, they're really families that they don't have an acre of cassava, they do not have an acre of maize, they do not have an acre of millet, they do not have an acre of groundnuts, and definitely they do not have an acre of cotton, and they don't work, and maybe one of their children for whom they sold a bit of land in order for them to complete a diploma education, perhaps even a degree education, do not have jobs. That's sort of really the reality in the broader part of the East and generally in this country. Even here at Kampala, where we have people who are doing relatively, would others be doing relatively well, many of the young guys are substantially unemployed. So that education thing has hit me. But 3 days ago, no, 4 days ago, I think, a guy called me very confident that he thought he was calling the women member of parliament for my area, my good friend Sarah Opendi, and saying that school is starting. Sarah normally helps him with part school fees, and in this case, even if it's only money for books. And I'm saying, this NRA of 38 years, this NRA that was just wasting our money the other day, and this NRA that picked up our UPE, Universal Primary Education, and then ran with it in such a crooked way. So where is it? So I think that really pinches. Finally, then comes the weekend, as I said, Monday coming today, people going to schools. A friend of mine told me of how her daughter is going to school, where she's got to pay 3 million shillings for first term for school fees. The daughter did reasonably well, and she said 700,000. I've not discussed with her 700,000 for school uniform. Whatever is happening in this country has been completely outsourced by the regime under which Awich serves. A majority of the people in this country are hurting. This morning I woke up at 4 o'clock. You can see I'm quarter asleep. Woke up at 4 to go to a television network, another network, for a program at 7:30. I had to leave my car 9 miles away and to go in a border simply because traffic was choked, and I left my house at 6:06. There is something fundamentally structurally wrong. So that has meant that my week leading to today has not been particularly good. But there's nothing specially new for me because I know these things. I'm just using that as a reminder to Ugandans that no, I think we need to speed up the process of having a national conversation about the future of our country, particularly post Mr. Museveni, who at the moment is quite clearly an apparently tired man, whether he likes it or not, and whether or not he then thinks this is a monarchy to put his son in there to run it for him for another 36 years until your age. It's neither here nor there.
Thank you so much, and that comes timely. Especially like today when we're going to be talking about issues to do with hereditary succession. Afande, you're welcome to the show today. How has your last 2 weeks been, and what has stood out for you?
Well, ideally, not much, but I first want to comment on what Comrade Ochieno was saying.
You're weak.
He has really repeated the same thing he has been saying over and over again.
Yes.
And it is packaged in the same way he says it, and we have replied him. I have replied him with data from Bank of Uganda, and if he doubts it, from World Bank, where we are not friendly, because if World Bank was friendly, we would say it is a friendly data. You have seen what positions World Bank has said. So the situation, as per the said figures, don't lie. It's not as he says. But we will continue sharing that because he keeps saying the same thing.
Some of them are factual though.
About school fees.
Especially about school fees.
It's an issue because it was even in Parliament. Maybe the misnomer is that school fees is a social service. And the same World Bank IMF I was talking about some time back, with their conditionalities, they made us liberalize on social services. Pull your fingers off from health, let private actors do it. Pull your fingers off from education, let private actors do it. So the side effects is what we are seeing. But the debate continues, and it was in Parliament. The solution will be fixed. Now, about myself, of the week and the issues that stand out is that not much touched me. And as I always say, no news is good news. Because if there is the news that travel faster are bad news. So never crave for news, because the news that will come is actually the bad one. So for me, if I have a flat week without news, routine activities, no news is good news for me. However, what stand out in the week was the celebration for Janani Luwum, because it is a matter of human rights and it's a matter of our history. That at one time we could have a government, and if you see some post which was, though acted, which was posted on social media, or now the then president moved with Luwum, apparently tortured, and asked him a few questions and personally shot him. Though acted, but that really gives the impression of our history. To the extent that it is sad, and we should do everything possible not to go back there. So it stood out to me because there was a memory of Uganda's past, and also being a memory of Uganda's past, it gave me a chance to reflect for the future. Shall we have a peaceful Uganda like we have now, where Comrade Ochieno sees it, that you can come on this TV, talk what you feel you want, freedom of speech, go home and sleep, tomorrow go to the next TV, which will never happen.
What is special about that?
What is special about that is that we are free.
Except relative to Idi Amin.
What is special about that, you are free to express your views and you are not killed for your views or even injured for your views.
Nobody should be killed or injured for their views.
But it has happened. But it has happened.
That happened under Idi Amin. It happened under Idi Amin, who was Museveni's friend with Gaddafi and Moses Ali.
Well, I always,
and that's 50 years ago.
I always keep saying that when you make your submission, I take notes, but it looks mine are too nice for you to keep quiet. You always interview.
I would borrow your notebook, except it's yellow.
You always interview. So the death of Luwum was something which stood out for me. As I said, it reflects our past, but it also makes us ponder about the future.
Okay. Thank you so much for all of that, and thank you for coming here today. And I wanted to again, like Mr. Ochieno also, from what you say, and especially the comments about Jana and Luwum and those fateful days during the Idi Amin. Do you think many of the things that happened during that time are happening at this time? Not probably at that magnitude, but do you think many of those things are happening today? Under the government that you are serving, of course. And if you're trying to be fairly honest.
If you list item by item, the rights are inherent, but the rights are codified. Codified simply means they are written down in codes, like Napoleon Code, so to say. So these rights, we can tick them one by one, and to see whether they exist, whether whatever bad thing exists, it is there or not. Pick right to freedom of expression. I gave you the example of Ochieno. Is he free to express? Okay, we take that.
And who are many, by the way, for that.
Yeah, we take that. Of course, you know, with freedom, the thing that you should know is that even the laws provide that you are only free to be free as long as your freedom doesn't interfere with my freedom. Because if you're free to step on my feet, then it is not freedom.
How about
you should respect boundaries. So you are free, but you're not free to kick me. You're not free to slap me.
That's very true.
So some of those are the members who get involved in that. In that, the state and the society find that their freedom are jumping on freedom of others. And that is when the state comes in to arbitrate. Either in a civil claim that somebody thinks you have injured his right, or in a criminal claim that the state feels you have offended somebody. Either way. So we can take one by one. Freedom of movement, take. Freedom of speech, Take.
Speech,
Freedom of worship, like Jan and Loom. Take.
Yes, that's
Freedom of food. Freedom of whichever freedom is there, we can take it.
But I found it, and funny enough, coincidentally, today is the day when many of the NUP supporters who were detained in the 2021 elections were produced today in the Marshall Court.
3 years ago.
Yes, in Machindi here. A place, by the way, that wasn't allowed journalists to come and cover those proceedings. So do you mean that some of those freedoms you're talking about apply to some individuals and don't apply for others?
No, they
I don't
apply
remember
to all.
a legal position that says you're not allowed to support
they
a
apply
particular
to
political
all.
party.
The only thing I'm saying is, if you exercise the freedom and you injure the freedom of others,
Particular
it can
others.
take two dimensions. If you injure my freedom, like for example, there was a case where a monitor, Museveni sued monitor.
Yes.
So it took it on a civil claim. That will, between you and the person, then you get paid or remedied. But if it is a criminal injury of freedom, then that is when the state comes in. So that is the situation of the other person. The state has a claim on them. Of course, it is not the people who should prove themselves innocent. So the state should prove that they are guilty. And that is when freedom is deemed by the state for you to have gone over your freedom and injured the freedom of another.
Okay, I'm hoping these freedoms don't have special...
So the list is long. And by the way, to go on these freedoms and rights, Uganda is a treaty body in the United Nations. And time and again, Uganda is under obligation to make reports to Geneva on its compliance. And the world, the United Nations, has a special court which verifies Uganda's compliance one by one in all the rights. And I can assure you, if it was so bad by now, you would have known it. Like I told you before, no news is good news. So if we were that bad, by now we would be shining negatively. But all the same, these rights, you can check on Google what is called Uganda's concluding observations on human rights reporting. You can check on treaty bodies. So we are not doing badly. So you can check one by one. But would you check that during a Amin's regime? There was basically no right to talk of. First of all, Amin told you he was a life president. So you didn't even have to talk about right to freedom of election of choice. He told you already, I am president, either mean Dada, distinguished service, conqueror of the British Empire, and then he ends up with life president. So how do you say that those things are existing?
No, they are not. No, I'm not saying what happened then is happening now. I'm saying considerable, relatable issues that happened then are also happening now. Not probably to the same magnitude, but they are there nonetheless. But anyways, to move to today's discussion.
Just to close on that, if those things happen, which I can't say they happen because we have had court precedents of trying them anyway. So the mere fact that we have court cases trying state officials for violations of human rights means that those cases exist. So because the society is such big, you can't say everything is perfect. But what matters is provisions that you have to sanction officers of state who violate rights. Otherwise, you won't have, even if you had a police of 1,000 police for the whole country, for goodness sake, you won't say 1,000 police will do every good thing. Even if you have a soldiers of a battalion of 1,000 for the whole of Uganda, you can't say that battalion will be peaceful or not do anything. So what matters here is, do you have provisions, safety catches, institutional frameworks that should that occur, you can prosecute them, you can sanction them. And we have lots of court precedents and punishments that have been meted out, including we used to do death, firing squad. And then the world came crying to us that we are being harsh.
All right. So let's move to today's discussion. We could go on about that one. Maybe we'll have a special edition for human rights and look at Uganda's performance at that. But today's discussion is about hereditary politics. And before I even get to the biggest offices in the land. We have, for example, FDC, after the passing of the late Tesiri Ogwaluman MP for Dokolo, FDC is fronting the daughter to replace the fallen Member of Parliament. We had the late Honorable former Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Olanya, being replaced by his son. We've had a lot of these issues happen. We've had the Jimmy Akena now stuck in the office of the UPC because the former and because the former leader, late President Milton Obote was the father, and all of these things happening. And now, of course, what is ongoing, that the talks in corridors about the president and his son. What do you think about the politics, hereditary politics? I want to begin with you. What causes all of these things to happen? Why do we think that it's important that if I am leading a certain constituent of people and I die, my son should be replacing me?
Why do you begin with me?
Because UPC was the first. Miria Obote was the first.
When in charge and experts at personal and family
Miria
things.
Obote was the first. UPC was the
I'll
first.
be delighted, and I'm delighted to start with it. But I just thought I had to put that on record because Comrade Which was really itching. He had to remind you that actually before Jim Akena, Mama Miria was replaced the president. No, it's an important question. I want to tell you that I'm personally fundamentally opposed to it. Milton Obote, I know, would be fundamentally opposed to it. This is official. Obote would be fundamentally opposed to it. Now, under the circumstances, before I give you the broader reasons and how, in UPC's case, the circumstance of the death of Milton Obote, the timing of the death of Milton Obote, the personality and nature of polity of character, and in this case charisma around Milton Obote, persuaded a critical number of UPC members at the time that we were quite worried, actually. Remember, parties had been banned for 20 years. We had just defeated Museveni. We had just been preparing the return of Milton Obote. I was a party to that just months before he died. Actually, around the time that Milton Obote died, so months, that led to the election of Mama Miria as president. We had challenges inside the party with some of the leaders at home here who, with Obote in Lusaka, there had been some common rancor with Cecilia Gual as a leader 10 years before, and then immediately Obote formed the presidential, the Constitutional Steering Commission to replace Presidential Policy Commission. Some of the people who had been appointed were not happy. So there was some internal rancor. And I would suggest, part of these are for my memoirs, that some members possibly went into mini panic. One in grief on the one hand, but others in panic. But I think also others thought they're thinking strategically to take advantage of the aura around Milton Obote and the public outcry at the time to garner sympathy around his name and his family, hence Mama Miria. The critical push for members then was to look for a solid leader as a uniter, very important, solid leader as a uniter for Uganda People's Congress, absolutely not opportunistic at all, who would bring us together in grief and post-grief and in transition. And at that time, people thought that Mama Miria would then be the best mother, somebody who had not really had any crash with anybody, any wings or factions or interests within the party, to lead the party. I am on the record to say that, and I'm on record and was there to tell her that Mama Miria was absolutely not interested in the leadership of the party at the time. I'll give you the context of this hereditary thing relative to other families. Mama Miria was completely not interested.
I wanted to fit in just this period.
Yes.
At the time when you decided that, because I want to understand that a political party is a public entity.
Yeah.
Was it the position of the members of the part of UPC, even Ugandans at that who support UPC, to say that Miria was a suitable replacement?
And that's exactly the point I'm trying to make. It was predominantly from the membership. It was predominantly from the membership and influential membership as such, and representative membership as such, to push for Mama Miria as the uniter person. if family members, they were really not particularly influential. Family members of Milton Obote were not influential in UPC. And by the way, Lango people were generally really not, in the press about it, influential key people, influential in the party leadership at the time, decision making in the party. Granted, Obote's relative, Adoko Nekyun, was fairly a present person, but beyond really Adoko Nekyun, there was really nobody from that sub-region, really from that family, who was part involved in this. So how the conversation started, I don't know, but I know that I personally got around the time when Mama Mira was to make the decision, and she was saying that, look, she would only accept the position on condition that particular 3 individuals supported her, and that included myself. That's how I got to know it. And then number 2, that would be on condition that she only served as an interim leader for 3 or 4 years, basically to allow for a new leader of the party to come when stability post the grief had taken place, and then we were able to reorganize ourselves as a party. And that's really what happened. That sort of drove the Mama Mira leadership. Granted, there are people, as I said, who saw strategic political opportunistic strategy, that because Obote had been so popular and because of the massive national and in fact global wave, but particularly national wave around him, that a mere continuation would give us mileage as a political party. So fast forward, that said, you would not compare that with any of the questions of family polity in any of the existing political parties, one in this country and across the continent. And as I say, they gave the disclaimer. I know Milton Obote in heaven never would have, and in fact I work with Obote and members of his family, people around him, he would really and never really took political leadership on the basis of identity or indeed family or privilege. In any case, I know that I had some issues with some people who possibly thought because I was not Lang, or in fact I'm not from the north, maybe I had slightly much more advantage than average. So from that point of view, I think that's the case. I mean, that was really the situation in UPC. Beyond Mama Mira, then came Jimmy, whose interest in this thing I didn't actually know until 2009, when Olara emerged for the leadership of the party to replace Mama Mira. That's when I came to know that Jimmy had an interest. And of course, I stood against him. So he's a friend, I'm a member of the Milton Obote family in a very big way, but I was fundamentally opposed to the idea that Jimmy should replace his mother who had replaced his father. And I made it public, and that's a position I hold. And as I said, I know Milton Obote in heaven completely agrees with me on that. That said, your other question was why? In established democracies, these are usually not the case. There will be politics for charisma. You of course will take them to some of the Allende's, and you could take them to the Pakistanis of this world. But many of those are areas where there's family dynasties, and politics, areas where politics is very much about money and power. In a country like Britain, you come out with as an entitlement. First of all, social class, the rich, if you're rich, particularly outside the conservative political party, conservatives, you'll rarely actually gain traction with the voters. Voters want people who are like them, and they rarely like guys who come with wealth and privilege and power and entitlement. So they rarely support you. So if a member of parliament dies, in most cases, and or leaves, in many cases, this hereditary thing is actually not there, which I think is extremely nice. It is something that I hope that we're able to check in this country and reverse across this continent, because while we are anti-monarchism, and in UPC we are actually a Republican political party, I really don't think that, and by the way, political power, just me being, with respect, me being a member of parliament, my good brother Gerald is here, serving the people as a member of parliament for 5 years is such a huge privilege, such an honor, that I think to make it sort of a permanent entity and an entitlement, and from you to then your son and your daughter, I think it's rather unfair. And to make it worse, that you want to take it to the office of the state, meaning the presidents, and in this case, like in Uganda's case, you have Mr. Museveni, an imposition. First of all, he imposed himself. 2, he wasn't elected. And 3, he had actually battered people in Luweero, forcing himself to come into power. 4, you come to power after 38 years, you leave a shambles, economic shambles for the country. And then 5, then you have this, arrogance of entitlement that, well, it can only be your family. in NRM's case versus anything else that has happened anywhere in the continent. One family, 3 generals. One family, 4 ministers. One family, 3 permanent extended deputy officers of the state. Shocking.
I'm going to come back because when you talk about the UPC, and that time when you're making a decision to make Mama Media replace the fallen husband, you said it was a position of the party and that is what they agreed. How different would it be that NRM, for example, today decides that as a party we have agreed that Muhoozi is going to replace his father, and how different does that become?
By the way.
But let me come back to you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'll respond to that, sure.
Yeah, I wanted to get his... Are you welcome, Honorable Gerald Karuhanga?
My apologies, the traffic was terrible.
It is...
NRA traffic, Gerald. But you're fantastic. Good seeing you, my brother.
Very good to see you.
This is what he began with. We're happy to have you, sir.
Thank you.
And I'm going to first continue with you as Honorable gets a catch of what we're talking about. So this whole hereditary kind of politics and succession, first from the position of the NRM where it has been largely and dominantly practiced, by the way, from the members of parliament, many of them in the NRM being replaced, the one who dies, the replacement is usually a son or a daughter or something like that, something in the family, someone from the family. What do you think about that? Do you think that is good practice for democracy?
Well, first of all, if you talk of NRM and succession, to us in NRM, it has been more of a reaction than a proaction. It has been more of a reaction to the phenomenon than a proaction. In that, when it started, it didn't start with NRM. Actually started with UPC. And I looked at them and I wondered, and I looked at them and I said, these people are playing a very dangerous game. They are playing a dangerous big game because...
Which you adopted.
I'll come to that. They are playing a dangerous game because they don't have the capacity in terms of human and other resources, and yet they want to play the game. They will lose in their game using their own rule. You set up a game, you define the rule, and you're beaten in your own game. That is unfortunate. But let's first talk about this succession. In Ugandan speak, I guess we all know, we are really not talking of the succession in the real sense of the kingship, like King of Uganda or King of Bunyoro. But I think it is used in a loose sense that when a political leader leaves, a family member, not necessarily a sign or something. So I think this is the, in Uganda speak, this is what has come to be defined as succession, where a close family member replaces the other. Now, globally, the history of hereditary, even in kingdoms, like United Kingdom or whatever kingdom, in monarchies, the history, amazingly, was that there used to be a selection or election, you would call it election or selection. But over time, the children of the late would always win until the thing translated to hereditary. That is a history. Even if you do research, that is how it started. And I don't know whether that is the direction we want. So globally, that is the history of hereditary in kingdoms, whether in Spain or in France, wherever it is. That is how it started. Now, in Uganda, as I said earlier, it started with actually UPC. When President Obote died, maybe somebody will remind me of an occurrence before that, but I know that that is what it started. And I straight away realized that they are playing a dangerous game, that they would be, if you continue playing that game, is the story I had already said, that you start a game, you define the rules, and you're defeated in your own game using your own rule. Then, of course, it picked up. I remember this guy who was voted around Kawanda there, the other side of Agricultural Research Institute, the minister, whose son became later MP for Nansana. Nansana, the Minister of State for Agriculture, came in. Then the lady from Butaleza came in. And then until recently, a lot of things happening. So we do take cognition that the Constitution of Uganda doesn't provide anything like that. And for us as a law-abiding party, we do recognize that the Constitution does not provide anything about hereditary. You do it at your own peril or whatever you want. So, as the party position is that we are actually forced by the 95 Constitution to move away from individual merit. So we wouldn't, from a philosophical point of view, where we want individual merit, where we think that the revolutionary stand that any Uganda is incompetent in his own way, it would be really wrong for us to go against, go even to the other extreme. Therefore, even the Constitution made us go under a referendum to adopt a multi-party, moving away from the independent, the movement, which is all-encompassing, with a principle of individual merit. That is what we cherish. We even still slightly moved to NRMO. Even when they said form your own political organization, we still moved, still with the heart of the movement, we still formed NRMO.
And what happened?
Meaning that the philosophy we adore is the philosophy of a competent Ugandan who is competent in his own way, not by birth. Now, we don't, of course, prohibit children from families to contest.
Yes.
Okay? That is a position. So whichever is contesting from a family of a late member of parliament like Jacob Olanya, a sister like Nabenda, or this other minister, I'm talking about the Minister of State for Agriculture, who was a researcher in coffee, and many others who have happened, they'll do it at their own individual capacity.
Yes.
Now,
just a second about that one. So they've done that at the individual capacity, but they come with the flag of the party. I want to understand that parties have their own positions. And many of the times when these young people or relatives are replacing their deceased relatives again, usually even the president, I've heard him once say, let him go and finish what his father started, what his mother started. Is that to translate to say that because this one feels like the father was doing something which they didn't finish, you want to finish it? Does that translate into merit and competence for you as a party?
No.
What is the position of
what
the party
has happened and what happens, which I see practically, not theory, is that when death occurs in that situation, the party members in that constituency are the ones who come together with such kind of view. Remember that a flag bearer in NRM is a very expensive venture. Because for us, a flag membership in the party is more or less like a general election. So the position is that when somebody dies, or somebody is not capable of contesting for election and the flag is there for free, everybody is supposed to contest.
Yes,
and we always have it. Now what happens, that I've seen physically, like in the case of Olanya, I was already at the secretariat. From nowhere, from the constituency, you find the party leaders coming to the secretariat on their own and saying we have a proposal. It is always very difficult for us because they even start to negotiate, because normally many candidates come up and then you start to negotiate depending on their proposal. Oh, you let this one step down, the other one, this one, you're starting to make funny demands. That's what happens. Like even now in the case of Cecilia Gwal, we already have a flag bearer. But you still see many aspirants from the same party. You said, but the position is clear, we have a flag bearer. So for the case of death or inability to stand in the next election, what we have been seeing and what I have seen in my presence is that it is always a grassroots generated. I have not known in any instant where NRM has said so and so died, do it, go and replace. If there are individuals who moot, I know individuals who start to moot it up.
Publicly, and if they're public officials,
Yes.
ministers in public spaces,
Yeah.
those are quite formal, so take it as public.
If there are members who moot it up, then it's really not a party position. It's not a SEC position, it's not a NEC position, it's not even a position of the national chairman. I know that for a fact. But sometimes when they start to engage in these things and it catches the flame in quotes and quotes and it picks up, then it translates into somebody's son coming up. And again, I am telling members who do that, in that they are starting a precedent that sooner or later they'll find it has become a practice that you have to deal with. Like I'd said, historically monarchies, that is how monarchy started. So the position in NRM is that whoever has been mooting is not a party position. I sit in SEC because I'm a director. I have not known of any position in SEC that is even confidential or decided that is son of Chuan, so, or that is our position. Never.
But SEC is also silent about the same, so either way, neither stops nor...
No, but for now we should know that it is blessed, it is supported, and you can cite incident that in the case of so and so, you actually mooted it and justified it, not only mooted by way of somebody like, for example, if Anita, the speaker, a member of parliament has died, say from abroad, and Anita as a speaker, or deputy speaker, moots such an idea, then they have mooted it in their own way. It is not NRM which has done
so
it. What would hurt me is that NRM's or comes up, say, in a policy position that we support this, in a policy position, or even not in a policy position, but a decision taken at the right forum and said, we are supporting this, not because of his competence, but we want to support the son of so and so, and it becomes a practice. It has not.
Okay.
Even on...
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, and of course I'm going to come to the first family and what is going on. Of course we have some questions around that from what is going on in the corridors. Honorable, you're welcome.
Thank you.
We are talking about the issue of hereditary succession in politics, business and practice that has been practiced in Uganda for quite some time, and you've been around quite long enough. You've served in many of these spaces and you've seen many of these issues. What is your thought about this trend, and how do you think this comes about?
You know, there are matters of state management that you can afford to sometimes maybe take a little lightly, but there are those that are so critical that they got the bedrock of the sustenance of a stable country. And so we stem from a very unbelievable history. Our history has been full of wars. We fought, changed leaders 9 times so far, had in any peaceful manner, and we had hoped that maybe finally, with so many bodies that we had in Ruwero and other parts of this country in the last war, bringing this regime into power, one would have thought that maybe finally we've parted off from that history. And that's why you see our constitution is so emphatic. The first sentence recalling our history that is full of turmoil and violence. You can imagine a country, I mean, if you check other countries' constitutions, they focus on lots of good, but for us, we have to be realistic. That, you know, we've had this history and we can't delete it as such. So you would think that the actors, the leaders, at different levels, have appreciated, have understood, have realized that we cannot keep shedding blood and killing each other to remove one group of leaders and replace it with another. I mean, if we have not learned enough for the last 9 times, surely.
What will it take?
So, you have cases, for instance, of, let's look at a case, let's say, like North Korea. North Korea, I think, is largely a clear example of so much of how human beings can move so far off from democracy and end up with a literary dynasty that probably initially people thought was maybe, you know, is one good leader, and maybe the next one is well, if it's just a one transition, yeah, then it's okay. Yeah, I have a feeling even them didn't know that at the beginning it would end up where it is now. So, and honestly, whenever we talk about this, the one thing I like about the Ugandans is that we have that deep sense of sincerity. That even when you see, like my brother here, Awich, you can see the depths of struggling to explain the inexplainable. Like and it's not just him. You can see it all over the place. That every person, even those who are very, very critical members of the ruling party, when you bring this up, you can see deep in them. You see the struggle. You can see the worry. And it's not unfounded. We know where we've come from. We know that people can be patient for some time. Right now the country looks like, maybe people are resigned, people have kind of let things be. The old man, after all, he's very old, he's in his 80s. Maybe at some point the Almighty will help us and the situation. I can tell you that may not exactly be the case. You know, there is the metaphoric expression of the cow dung, how it dries. When you look at it on top, it looks very, very dry. And it actually really looks very dry. You may think it has been dry for even years. And you just step on it a little. And then you realize the thing is deeply wet in there. So it's what's prevalent in our country. There is so much resentment. Unfortunately, so much anger. And this anger, I mean, firstly, it's unfortunate people are angry. But the anger has its every reason. People have been patient. So bad thought that maybe this government could be different from the past. And maybe so they waited for the first 10 years. And it's not, so there was a bit of, we are trying to stabilize, and then the constitution brought in some bit of hope in 95. And then, until in 2005, the safety measures that were embedded in our constitution to make sure that we don't go back to the same times of fighting and killing each other to change leadership in this country. The first measure, one particular one, which was the presidential term limits, were removed. And were not democratically removed as such. If you recall, money exchanged hands. Every member of parliament at that time got 5 million shillings. Then it was a lot of money. And then people said, oh my God, what is this? How can people take us back to these things? Because we've had so much fighting, people didn't want to go back. They said, okay, maybe, there is still another one. There's still another safety measure, yes. And so the other one, of course, was the age limit. This time I was humbled to be old enough to be in parliament. But, I mean, the money that exchanged hands in that parliament to achieve, I can say this publicly. There was even a young parliamentarian, I'm told, in one of the meetings, who suggested that that maybe we should start, you should give us 800 million. That was the first, the negotiation started at that level. You give us 800 million, we give you what you want. You can imagine.
It was an actual transaction.
It was basically a purchase. It was, and then eventually they settled for 200 million. Which was paid in different tranches. We all know these stories. And then you are thinking, are we running a country? Is this a mafiesco that people used to read about in Italy and things like that? What is this? But now, here we are. I mean, as if 40 years are not enough. Then someone comes up with coins an idea and says, by the way, I think the sun could actually also take over. I mean, wait a minute. Is this a joke? So, I mean, and it all starts with all these birthday parties. And everybody's like, wow, okay. Actually, we have the birthday parties. Making rounds in the country while presenting a presidential bid. Poor country, people very needy, in very wanting times after COVID. And everyone is seeing all that. And then, of course, you have the pilau, there was a lot of rice. I don't know whether it's related to the PLOU, which they had something called pilau. Pilau. Somebody says the yellow pilau. I don't know what the whole that is all about. But on a critical note, now we have people in our country, firstly, who do not take seriously the fact that we have military officers in their uniform, while still serving, running partisan politics as if there is no law in this country. And for some reason, that seems okay. It's
normal.
It's as if normal. It's fine. And then you have men at first, you know, if people thought it was a joke, there were a few kind of actors that we probably not taken very seriously in the general public, but were surrounding this whole MK movement. So people didn't think, the people kept, you know, and I think people started realizing that, oh, I think no one is taking us seriously. Not until now, they now begin bringing on board the leaders that ordinary Ugandans would want to listen to and take a little more seriously. And of course now with the new window dressing of PLOU, like seriously, do we appreciate how this can be so dangerous for our country? That people can wait for so long and reach a point, you know, I mean, on the face of things, it cannot look like people can keep very patient. They remain patient. They naturally, any human being, any group of human beings, any community, any society has its breaking point. And I think there is something that is going on in this country that no one seems to, I mean, like seriously, people are not realizing that we are busy about to entrench a dynasty system that is probably going to spark off another chaos in this country. That we're about to reach that point where we'll break off and go back to these turmoil times that we've seen in the past. And so we must, seriously, it doesn't matter which action, on this particular one, I would really appeal to every Ugandan. It really does not matter the party you belong to. It's true, personally, well, I speak for the Alliance for National Transformation, a wonderful I love. I want to believe that there are those issues that must bring us together as a country. That irrespective of our political parties, you look and say, but wait, are we going to sit back? How did we even end up here in the first place? So then what's going to unfold? Are we going to just sit back and then later we'll say, oh, how I wish. The other day we were celebrating Archbishop John Lumu. I mean, history will always count him. He stood firm ground and challenged the status quo. So I just think that every citizen has a responsibility. Yes. And we all have a role to play to make our country better, to make our country safe for everyone and the posterity as well. All right,
thank you so much. We're going to go for a very short commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to get into many of these issues. We were having a conversation with some other young people, and they were saying, what is wrong with any Ugandan running for politics and doing whatever they like? as long as the law does not bar them, except for the part, of course, that the other one is a serving member of a military outfit like UPDF, Uganda People's Defense Forces. But we're going to get into this conversation. We're going to go a very short commercial break. We will be right back. Don't move.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
What at the church, though?
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Because when you vote somebody into authority,
in an exclusive interview, Internal Affairs Minister Major General Kahindo Tafile has underscored the need for voters to critically evaluate the qualifications, track record, and ability of those seeking their mandate to effectively tackle pressing issues facing the nation.
think about what you want. Vote for that person who will solve your problem.
His statement comes at a time when fingers are pointing at different politicians to take President Museveni ahead of the 2026 polls.
Because if you say so-and-so's son will take over from the father, his son will also want to take over from his grandfather, then there will be Sultan. There will be Sultan number one, Sultan number two, and then the whole essence of democracy for which we fought will be lost.
Major General Tafile directed his attention to first son General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who has been rumored to be eyeing elective positions within the government.
General Muhoozi, if he wants to take power, should take it democratically, as per laid down procedures and regulations in a democratic, fair, competitive election. Not because he's President Museveni's son. That's dangerous. Let him prove to Ugandans that he's capable, not as Museveni's son, but as he, Muhoozi, who is competent to manage the country.
General Tafile's remarks come at a critical time in Uganda's political landscape, where discussions around succession and leadership transition have gained prominence.
Because when you vote somebody into authority,
What has been happening, and that is why we're having, one of the reasons why we're having this conversation, we seem to be headed to that direction. And we need to be a bit more honest with ourselves and look at these issues and understand what the repercussions we will reap if we do not address this issue by the head. So while we were going before they talked, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the position, the issue around President Obote and Mama Maria, that transaction that then she became the leader, and how that looks then now with Museveni and his son. How do you see the difference between those two?
You know, thankfully, even for Tafari, imagine I'm about to agree with Tafari. That's what goes real life in politics. You know, so from even the Tafari perspective, as I said at the beginning, you could not compare the Mama Mira circumstances with the 40 years of ended, first of all, brutal war of torture and massacre in Luwero, killing our people innocently, Museveni and his bunch, okay? Then after Luwero, they come and take over power, and they control power for 20 years, banning political parties, and then we force ourselves to come in, you know? then right now to begin to prepare his son, who moves from a toddler carried by Henry Keloriem to a general. Apparently, I've just seen that actually. Muhoozi is a general and Kahindu Tafiri is not. So you can see what some of these things are. You know, I cannot talk about other people, neither here nor there. You know, so basically, look, one of the ways I was going to suggest that we follow this topic was to confirm that, well, in Uganda, this topic is irrelevant because we know that this is a monarchy, dynasty, Museveni thing, starting with Fronasa, but particularly with the NRA thing, the army, the institution of governance and everything else has been intertwined into one thing, a family thing. In any case, one of the things that we might be asking is how the system being used to prepare Muhoozi to cushion the family estate, meaning Uganda is basically a pocketed family estate. So that said, just as food for thought, to bring it back to the Milton Obote, Mama Miria, and Jimmy Akena thing, as I said, and the circumstances then very different. The party had been banned for a long time. The president had been in exile and died very, very abruptly. And like Comrade Awich said, it was basically an emotive response to a situation at the time. And as I said, it came from key members of the party who were quite concerned the party might possibly fracture. But I also suspect that a number of people internally might have thought that it was an opportune thing considering the kind of positive wave that responded to that received, Dr. Obote's death, that possibly they might gain political capital. From that perspective, by and large, yes. Were family members involved? I also said no, and that's before Gerald came on air. Now, Mama Miria, not interested. Milton Obote was absent, as I said, in heaven. I am his permanent spokesperson. I can tell you officially, Obote would never have sanctioned it. And the Obote in heaven today, I know, feels absolutely sad that after Mama Miria, Jim Akena particularly came in a manner in which he came, including at the moment occupying Uganda House by force, only nothing else short of being officially backed by another dubious arrangement. That said, Mama Miria then, who becomes the candidate I told you, Gerald, I'll repeat this for your purposes, becomes a very reluctant player to come to serve as an interim leader to bring the party together. Mama Miria, I'm one of the people she consulted. She gave conditionalities, only she would accept to put her name to be put forward on condition that particular individual supported her, and that included myself. And part of that was also on the conditionality that she did not serve a full term, that she only served as an interim leader. So if you gave her that circumstantially, it would not apply to this politics of succession and family. Then after that, she became a leader. And indeed, she became an interim leader who did not serve her full time because she was completely not committed to it. Fast forward then to Jimmy. As I said, Jimmy became a candidate in 2009 when Olara had offered himself as a candidate. In fact, I came to know about Jimmy's candidacy after I had even personally declared my candidacy for UPC leadership on 30 September of 2009 to replace now Mama Miria. From then on, regardless of whether or not I declared my candidacy, I said I would not have supported Jimmy. I'm completely on board to support a family and things like that. Jim is a friend of mine. I simply did not believe, and I do not believe, that it would be a right thing for Milton Obote to be replaced by his wife, and then after that to be replaced by his son. And I said that position then, and I said the position today. But in UPC, away from my own position, UPC members really, at the back of their mind, did not really have this culture that let's Obotenize this political organization. And even if they did, you will not compare it with the mess that is actually happening in NRA today, particularly about Museveni, his family, his control, his wife, his brother, and then his son being prepared to take over from that. So UPC cannot be considered to be the starter of this thing from the perspective of what Comrade Awich is trying to talk about. But granted, circumstances unfortunately created by NRA, because NRA that confined my president in exile, eating cassava in Lusaka in a very crude way, and yet is the father of this nation, who built this nation that these NRA bandits have gone ahead and toured for all these years. But anyway, Obote had died. It was a tragic moment, and it was genuinely a tragic and shocking moment for all members, and it was basically an interim rescue measure they did. If then other people and political parties and organizations took it up and reached to where we are at the moment, granted, we put up our hands. That said, though, it's also true that in the event, therefore, that particular party members, as Comrade Awich say, decide that they want to pick members of one family to run with these things. I gave the comparisons that happens at the major democracies. Usually the response in democracies where politics is not about individuals, politics is not about money, politics is about policies and programs and issues, where you look at the policies of the political party in question, the manifesto programs, and then the nature of the candidates, their commitments. I am somebody who's privileged now to have interviewed candidates for the Labour Party for positions. Really, you don't start by saying who's your father, who's your mother, but rather how long you've been a member, how much contributions you've made to the community, your own depth in terms of in terms of commitments and appreciation of the political party in question, and then that relative to the particular area that you'll be wanting to serve, whether as a councillor and member of parliament. Those are the kind of things that political parties would then go ahead and look at. Generally, if you took us back to Uganda of the 60s, Uganda of the 80s, which has not been monetized and controlled, and with electors that are so now desperate about money and whose other daughter is going to go down there to pay school fees for us, I actually think most Ugandans still would also be very resentful about the idea that Ochieno was the MP or the president, and then the next person to replace him is his son, to continue with what Tafilo is talking about hereditary politics. It shouldn't be that. And as I said, Gerald, I totally agree with you. It's something that I think Ugandans need to be able to wake up and to simply say no and discourage it. I find interest to what Comrade Awich said. You know, he's an official at NRA Secretariat, understandably underrepresented for NRA, the political organization that has actually been now quite discredited when it comes to the question of democracy is concerned. But I think severally, Museveni's made public pronouncements in backing children of these people, in particular, you know, several times, and so have his ministers. And the example you give about the Anita monks, what surprises me though, is that when you say these people make these statements, they make these statements as individuals and should be read as individuals. You know, that's what I'm trying to say, that it's very sad that this country has been ruled for 40 years by an organization that does not take responsibility. For me, Ochieno, you guys, you see me wherever I go. Gerald, wherever I go, even in the market, wherever I go, I am conscious of the burden of responsibility about my name, integrity, and responsibility, the young people who meet me, the strangers who meet me. That is what leadership is all about. So therefore, anything and everything I say and talk, most times, I take responsibility for their consequences. To be someone who has got the privilege, as Gerald had, to reach a level of a member of parliament, and to be a minister, and to be a speaker, and then to go at a particular funeral and to begin making statements without deep thought about what the implications is for the political party and organization that you represent, and to not to be to consider whether or not that's consistent with the values and aspirations of a political organization, is to tell you that we have been ruled by a group of people whose agenda is nothing but sustaining and controlling themselves. And that's why I've always told you guys, this country after 38 years of NRA has been the most tragic in our history.
And I wanted to begin at that very point with Major Awich. You say, and from that very statement that you made, that when each one of those members make that statement, it's on their own. It's counted on them, not on behalf of the party. I want to take you at that when they were launching the Patriotic League, something, that one. When they were launching it, there were ministers of the NRM, from the NRM, there were ministers. There were members of parliament who were members of the NRM party. There were LC5 councillors. Many of these guys are from the NRM party. And yet, you are the same, literally what they are promoting, if you can even see in the background, is that general, the son of the president. What do you mean when you say that as a party that is not our position, and whoever is doing it, they are doing it independently? What does that mean?
Well, it's a simple, direct, grammatical meaning. It's really not anything philosophical. But I will answer that. But I first want to pick up from what Honorable Gerald had said. Gerald is saying that the occurrences make some of us, particularly me, explain with difficulty. I like to assure Gerald that I explain with ease. And why I explain things with ease, first of all, is because I've been in NRA, so I'm not talking theoretically, since childhood. 2, I work at the Secretariat. And 3, I attend the meetings. So if I was getting whatever information, I would be gambling. And also to tell Gerald that the occurrences that have appeared to share, I think even with you and him, many times, the feedback I get is not that I explain with difficulty. In fact, I get a feedback that I explain
very well
with ease. That is the feedback I get. So I'm surprised you say I'm explaining with difficulty. Never. That is the feedback I've got all along. Now, on the contrary, Honorable Gerald, is that you see, Honorable, when we talk in this forum, the audience should benefit. It is more educative because they expect us, for example, to dissect a topic of hereditary politics. But the way Honorable Gerald answered your question is like he came with his recorded answer. In other words, even if you ask Gerald, is there food in Uganda? Still the same answer was going to come up. So it was going to, if somebody came from planet Jupiter and heard what Gerald was answering, he wouldn't know that the question, more likely the question was about how bad is Uganda or how bad is NRM. It wasn't. So our audience would benefit, even for goodness sake, by a definition of what a hereditary rule is or hereditary politics. But if you come and we make a general statement that actually portrays your discontent even outside this room, then the audience want to benefit from what we are discussing. They should learn, we should define for them, we should discuss the matter. Not a generic presentation of a discontent where if somebody came from planet Jupiter, he would actually either think Gerald was answering how bad has Museveni misruled this country. Possibly that was the question.
I think that's what he chose to listen to.
So,
you seem also to have a predetermined mind of listening certain things.
You can actually say that even to the next student, without that question, it will still be the same answer.
Oh.
So now, I like to say this, back to the topic of hereditary. The question I'm asking myself, is it NRM or is it Uganda? Are there credible data to make us see? First of all, we seem to have a consensus that nobody in Uganda would like hereditary politics. And that's why you hear it coming from a general.
I hope we do.
And that's how you hear it coming from a general. And that's why you hear it coming from a minister. And that's why you hear it coming from a member of SEC. He's a member of SEC. Okay? And it's historical. So that is the view, at least the consensus that I hear. And that is why even those who go for it, including the Akena, they don't even go and openly saying, me Akena, I'm going for the hereditary. Even Akena who is going goes and says, I am competent. Okay? And competent. So, therefore, why does he hide or why does he poster as competent? It's because the feeling he knows that the minimum consensus is that Ugandans wouldn't like that. Now, back to the question whether this is a Ugandan or an NRM thing. We can take data. For example, let's look at all parties. How many parties have fronted candidates for hereditary? I think there was a DP in Masaka also who got an accident. So DP has its share. You look at UPC. UPC led it.
Only one.
You look at independence. Even independence in Serere, independence like in Butaleja, independence, I've done it. So, if we're to make our audience benefit from our discussion on hereditary politics as it is, we would have screwed it up if we discuss it like it's either an NRM thing or what. Instead, we should be generating consensus to Ugandans. Do you like it? Do you not like it? And you see the consensus. And part of my assertion is that even those who go to really in their heart knowing they're taking the inheritance, they wouldn't like to front it. Because if they thought it was good, if they thought Ugandans like it, why wouldn't they come open? Okay? Like son of Olanya, why wouldn't it come, I am inheriting my father's thing. Or the son of the Minister of State for Agriculture say that. Or Akena saying that. But in all scenarios, all of them claim to have competency, independence, and all that sort of thing. Therefore,
can I just provide a small backup on that? As a matter of interest, and I think we generally agree with you in terms of the emphasis that should actually be an unfair thing in principle if we're making this when making these when having this conversation. I must actually say, to be fair to you guys in NRA, that notwithstanding the fact that the circumstance of UPC was unique, and I've defended it, and I hope Ugandans do actually understand it, that the challenge that you guys have is that over the last sort of like 5, 6, 7, 8 years, there has been a general perception, we can call it perception reality, that Mr. Museveni has been preparing his son. And that is something that's going to kneel for 10 years, because in a way, going way back to actually the problems that Tinyifuza had with NRA and with Mr. Museveni, that is now so critically round that whereas everybody else is doing it, you know, the biggest offense is that of the Supreme Office. And
Can I proceed?
No, yeah. The one of the Supreme Office led by Mr. Museveni in a manner and the circumstance in which he actually gave us the introduction that now Mr. Museveni is doing it with his son. So apparent that his son, who was basically a toddler the other day, is now a general from one family. And that his son, who is now a serving general, is even doing it while breaching the constitution of the country, and in many cases possibly flouting what you guys at the Secretariat will allow.
So I'm back saying that for the betterment, for the understanding of our audience, is that when we're discussing the inheritance politics in Uganda, we should rather look at it in the perspective of Uganda. And we have data to show. Even in NU, for example, you may not call it hereditary, but even the family of the leader, has tempted to position themselves in many places, including his brother who stood here and a sister who stood somewhere else. Isn't it? A sister stood. Did she win?
I don't think so.
His sister stood, the brother stood, and I wouldn't be surprised if in the subsequent election, even no fronts. So if we're looking at hereditary politics, as the topic states, unless we want to draw a topic and we concretely discuss Moses politics, and that would make another dimension of the discussion. Moses politics or Museveni with his hereditary. But as the topic stands, as I came prepared for, I wanted Ugandans to know this. And therefore, you can now see UPC. How have you been this? DP, what have you manifested in hereditary? How about independence? What have you manifested? How about FDC? Have you, for example, Cecilia Wal, FDC now, completely openly fronting Cecilia Wal's daughter. How about all these parties? But is this a Ugandan thing? Is this a NRM thing? So do Ugandans like it or not?
When mistakes are made elsewhere, I don't think also they really make it right. That and I don't know why you've chosen to speak about UPC. There is a spokesperson.
I've listed all.
Or DP or FDC.
I'm even listing NRM. I'm listing NRM.
If you talk about people listening to you and learning from you, you probably won't speak for the party that would want to hear from you, from the ruling regime, and tell us. And for honestly, let's not downplay this matter. This is the first time in the history of this country that a president's son is being processed to be a president. So let's not try to smear it and bracket it and veil it and give it an impression of we're not talking about members of parliament. Parliament is an institution where decisions are not made by one person. Here we have an executive leader. The head of state has all the executive powers that you can imagine. As you conclude, yes, just some little information. So I would really, if you really mean what you said at the beginning, that we need our audience to listen, and now I wish you had chosen to listen to my entire earlier engagement. So I think honestly, you should be able to share with us and tell us, as a ruling party, we struggle even to call you a party because sure we think a regime. So really, do you embrace hereditary politics where a sitting president, begins to process his son to replace him? Is it what you really wish and love for this country? And do you think that is taking us anywhere great as a country?
Yeah.
First of all, I like to understand that the framing of your topic talks about hereditary politics.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Honorable Gerald seems to think that we should discuss the hereditary in presidency or discuss more. What is your framing of the topic? What did you frame in your topic?
Here is, okay, let me try to clarify on this issue. The idea is, and why we are putting much emphasis on MK, including myself, by the way, for that matter, is because first, this is the first thing that's happening in this country and setting a very dangerous precedent. And you and me agree on that one. We are not saying that it's not happening in any other parties or it's not happening in Uganda as a whole. We are saying this one is particularly going to set a trend that we may not recover from. Yeah, that we may not recover from. And having you as someone from the party, it would be fair that we get the position of you as the leader of the party or on top of leadership of the party. What is your position? How do you look at all of these things? And that's why I was asking you why ministers and members of parliament from your party were the ones launching this.
Your topic says analyzing the causes and consequences of hereditary stock succession politics in Uganda. Okay?
Yes.
Ahead of 2026.
In
now,
Uganda, is what I mean.
Yes. So why are you narrowing it here?
No. So why are you excluding? Why do you want to discuss?
I'm not excluding.
Why do you want to discuss hereditary politics of this country?
I'm not excluding.
When it comes to the MK succession arrangement, you want to exclude it. I mean, we're talking about hereditary. In any case, that's the heart of our issues now. It's the most current thing, and it's the issue that is really prevalent, but also disturbing most Ugandans. Please,
I have not excluded anything. I am the first person, none of you ever dared to list organization by organization. And I have not said I'm excluding NRM. I am saying for us to know whether this is an NRM or a Ugandan thing, let us list all actors. If you want it, then let's start with NRM. How many has NRM fronted in the cause of succession? At least in as far as our flag bearers are concerned. We know them, okay? Admitted that we have floated, including Olanya's son, okay? Flag bearers. That is one. I think even the little girl in Eteso.
But Major Awich, why are you avoiding talking about the MK movement?
Why? So I am saying NRM, we have listed fronting. I am saying UPC has fronted candidates in hereditary. I am saying DP has fronted candidates in hereditary. And so on and so forth.
You've said it more than twice.
So now, this now will help us to say, no, colleagues, looking at the data available, this thing is on the NRM. The rest are not. So can we now discuss NRM with hereditary? I have said that if you look at the consensus and the sentiments there too, and I pointed at a condition, a ground that even candidates who go to inherit try to dismiss it. It means therefore as a country, it is not. So how then do you develop that? And that is why Gerald Karuhanga is saying, if somebody is to come in your own merit. So it therefore becomes the voters to discern between a candidate who has come in the shadow of the father and a candidate who has his own competency. And that will affect even people like Moses. So, gentlemen, I still insist that for us to come out, us here mean Uganda, for us to come here as Ugandans and come out clean on hereditary politics, we must know, Gerald is a lawyer, that he who seeks equity must come with clean hands. All the parties have come with dirty hands. And if we are talking of Uganda, we should know that this hereditary politics has penetrated all angles. And therefore it is us as Ugandans to say, is it right, colleagues, citizens, is it right or is it wrong? But if you screwed up the debate, you will miss it forever.
But for you, what do you think? Is it right?
I have already qualified to you that I share the sentiments of Gerald Karuhanga that it is not correct basing on the history. And Karuhanga is saying whoever comes should come on his own merit. That is a position. And I even went a step further to say not only me which my feelings, the feelings in the Ugandans are also like that. And I said, how do I know that? To the extent that even candidates who come to inherit even want to say, I'm not inheriting. If he knew it was right, and if he knew voters wanted, why wouldn't he come openly? So this is the debate, if we're to take debate on hereditary.
So just a second. So is it about the veiling? Is it about the nomenclature, what we call it, or it's actually the real action? So So people will come and say, oh, I'm coming as a competent person. Say, oh, I am able. I have qualifications, I have academic qualifications, I have leadership experience, I have all sorts of engagements I've had in my history, and so I'm able. But what is the actual thing that is being done? Because, I mean, let's also, I mean, we could be here and we help Mr. Awich to build a narrative, beginning creating soft ground for the man tomorrow once he leaves the army and says, now I'm actually an able man, I'm no longer in the military uniform, I am just able. No, we are talking about hereditary politics in the actual sense, not what we call it. We must, as a country, and on a very critical note, without fear, without any iota of reservation, tackle this topic head on. We will reach a point. I really pray. I really pray that God gives us life and we remain around. And I pray that maybe we don't also get there with what is prevalent now. Otherwise, we will be around here 10 or maybe less years from now, and we will sit back and say, wait a minute. We actually discussed this thing and we saw it happening. Maybe we would have done more, especially the people out there who would choose to fold their hands.
I wanted in a few minutes to ask you a question, and it's going to stem from what he said a little bit earlier. I'm not sure if you have joined. He said that the Constitution does not stop anyone from running. And it doesn't say that if someone dies, their son or their daughter or their relative should not run. So it's sort of silent about that one. Do you think we need a law to sort of give direction to this particular issue? If we do not have it, why do we then blame the others who are playing this card?
You know, listening to you, I work out a term in my mind called legal escapism. So people try to create
and he's a young lawyer.
So people try to give an impression as if there is a gap in the law, and so because of that gap, then people should take advantage. So the concept of constitutionalism stems from one of the most critical words you will learn about the constitutionalism is the word called grand norm. The mother law of a country. What constitutes a country? So Ugandans get together and say, this as long as we exist as a country, this is how we shall run our business as a country. And so, number one, the laws of Uganda do not expect a serving military officer to run for public office until they have resigned. And there is even a period. You can't resign today and you run tomorrow. And you've seen some people lose their seats previously because they chose to run much later as instead of resigning much earlier. That's one. And what's painful about that one is you would think that knowing our history, especially we have senior leaders in this country, especially those who are in government now, that they would really, you know, there are those, if you check, I mean, even I think I was probably in high school, but I would follow these things. If you check, let's say the 7th or 8th parliament, there were leaders in there that even when they were movement position, the ruling party positions, they would come out and say, but wait a minute, this is not good for the posterity, this is not good for the future of our country. And so people engaged. So you would think like on this particular one, you would want to hear many more General Tafiles. Not because he's probably opposed to the first son or the first family, but because it means a lot to the future of our country.
And that's a matter of principle.
Yes, and more so considering where we've come as a country. So I think we have adequate laws. Our constitution is clear. Our subsidiary laws are very clear. In fact, many countries visit Uganda. I saw it when I was in parliament. Would get delegations almost on monthly basis from different countries to visit the parliamentary library and literally copy and paste Some even are in this region of ours.
Yes.
Just speak our laws and policies.
And implement.
Very well written, very well thought through by experts. Then they go and implement. For us, we keep on our shelves and we celebrate our nice books. So, so the gap cannot be the law. It's the inherent spirit, the inherent actions. So there is this goodness of a human being that appreciates that for me to live well, my neighbor must live well as well. The Ubuntu spirit. So that is what is being muzzled. It's what's being killed. That so people should only pursue things that can elevate them as a, you be just take a little, just choose. I mean, you have a wonderful space here. This platform, this program. Quietly engage people who are involved in this whole PLOU and what have you movement. You will be surprised how on one everyone will probably speak the way we are speaking. But he says, but how do you survive in these circumstances? how do you, you know, and so the inner us as a people, as Ugandans, appreciate that there is something fundamentally wrong with what's going on. Now, but because for the last almost 40 years now, and maybe even including a few years of the Bush struggle, the spirit has been inculcated, that has been planted among us, has been largely for seeking out for the individual pursuits. And so people have become increasingly selfish. And so, and that is being used as a tool, as a window to pursue the dynasty concept, which we must vehemently speak and engage against.
Okay. Let me first, I have this question. It's going to stem from what he was saying again. This thing has been practiced long before the preparation of Muhoozi and his father, his whole business. This thing has been happening long ago, and it has been a practice. What do you think, first, what do we need to do, first of all? That is one. But also, why do we want to do differently and then expect another one to do differently?
I think Gerald is quite clearly giving us a call on something that we've done and have done on the same program. That particularly the Muhoozi project, notwithstanding the broader context of the conversation about hereditary polity, and my own strong objection to it, is that it's actually from a Muhoozi perspective an insult. I was actually one of those people, Gerald, who way back as 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I remember actually I need to ask this particular eminent Ugandan individual, and the person is female, and I remember asking, I was somewhere, abroad somewhere, and we had engaged in a telephone conversation about this Muhoozi thing, and the person was extremely dismissive that it would never happen. 3 years ago, when I came home to start focusing on certain projects, I engaged a number of people, including a very senior member of the, without prejudice, Ugandan military, in the private conversations. And that particular individual also was very dismissive that this is something that would never gain traction. But sort of it did, and sort of the reality is here. So maybe there's something about us Ugandans that we take things and take issues and situations for granted. And yet at the end of the day, when real things come, people tend to withdraw and go back into the fences. But as Gerald was talking about the grand norm, something came which is very apparent. Ironically, actually, my good person, or Tafir, with whom I was nearly agreeing today, very difficult to agree with NR guys, formal guys, is that actually, do you know, Gerald, they're serving military officers, you know, maybe I'm just letting the Museveni off now, Muhoozi off. They're serving military officers who are holding political positions, including cabinet ministers. I have been very critical about this for a very long time. I have been very surprised that many of my colleagues, and you as a spokesperson for one of the main opposition political parties, I have actually suggested many times that opposition political parties do rather badly, you know, when it comes to some of those things that I don't think we challenge the establishment enough. And maybe this is the time when we need to be able to up our voices to help to become the real genuine voices of the Ugandan citizens. So in other words, impunity sneaked in, entrenched itself, and now where it is, it's almost like, you know, you do whatever you so want. Meaning that for the formation of the Muhoozi charity, Patriotic Uganda Limited, as it was the other day, attended by cabinet ministers, those are things that people should be resigning for in whipped parliamentary systems. Because basically standing against a political position. So I think...
I want to take this one as you also address that. This has been a precedent that has been set. It's not starting with the MK. What is it we need to do? But why has it become only mostly an issue to this one now? why are we overlooking all of what has been building over time?
No, I think like I think like Comrade Awich would say, I was the first person to contextualize, if you like, concede the UPC element. But you may say so actually. The UPC element has generally been only one case of the Mama Mira thing and now Jimmy. Actually, at parliamentary levels, I'm not quite sure of any particular case, and if there's one, I need to be reminded of. I told you that the Mama Mira case was an extremely exceptional case, at the time, and only confined to the Jim McKenna case. Is a case that I actually like you guys to invite Jim McKenna and respond to. But officially, as Uganda People's Congress, particularly the UPC that I support and I represent, I'm fundamentally opposed to it. And as I say, it's actually shambolic. And I also want to tell you, the father of this country, who's the father of Uganda People's Congress and the founder of the Republic of Uganda, Milton Obote, would reject whatever that position is. Now, your question is, what do we do? In part, Gerald was talking about it, is that part of this has really been the death of political parties, the death of democracy, the struggling re-emergence of democratic institutions, unfortunately amid a time in which NRA had substantially entrenched the monolithic politics, me, myself, and I, and material politics, and this personality thing. A particular family emerges. Actually, that's how monarchies actually did grow. You know, a particular family emerges, loud voice, influential in particular places, and then when the rich man of the village has said something nobody else says, and the rich man becomes now almost like the mini god of the particular community and of the clan and the tribe, in many cases in these kingdoms emerge. What needs to be done, and all this happening while NRA is killing political institutions, political parties, compromising leaders, monetizing the entire process, the kind of monetization that Gerald was talking about. Internally, as political parties, you know, we continue to be very weak. Gerald's party is relatively possibly yours is probably the most secure in relative terms, and I've said so even in your absence, you know. Because of the struggles internally in political parties, it is difficult. What should happen? I think we should strengthen the democratic culture inside our political parties. Leadership in political parties should emerge. Those leadership should make sure that political party constitutions and rule books are played to and played by, and that when then, therefore, the question of elective positions come, members will know that, well, it's basically on merit and nothing else but merit, and that when you go for it, it's not like Ochieno, who waits for UPC leadership for 4 years, although in many cases some of the waiting is a result of the shambolic system in the judiciary, which is ruled and controlled by NRA. I think that is by and large what we want to do. But beyond that, I think the youth of this country genuinely need to come up and say no to hereditary system, reject Muhoozi, consider Muhoozi as an insult to this country, and many people like yourselves, particularly you, Gerald, simply say that, well, you're young.
And many people who are doing the same.
You're young and competent enough to be able to be also presidents, to be my deputies, while me and maybe Comrade Awich later we retire. I think we need to be able to do that. The youth of this country need to come up and simply say no. But when political parties operate freely, openly, and democratically, and when critical thinking goes into political parties, as I said at the beginning, you begin to see value. So when a position becomes vacant in Agongera, people are unlikely to look at Ochieno because Ochieno is the one with the biggest amount of money or the loudest family, but rather the most competent person. I'll conclude this with one example. Ali Romara, former Minister for Commerce in the Obote government, one of the most respected political leaders now retired, and from, as happens, from Lango, told me in Nairobi, by then you were just about being born, that when he became a member of parliament, he said that after the 1979 war, elders from the community approached him. He said it was not his consideration. Elders approached him. He just found these guys came to say, look, this election thing is coming, and then of course we think that you should be the right person to represent us in parliament. So he went on, and so that's how he gained his interest. He was actually approached, and people came formally to his home, and that's how he went to become a member of parliament, and then later Minister of Commerce. I think more civil politics, more competitive politics will kill and reduce this thing. And the more involved citizenry, more ideological polity will then push politics of issues and politics of substance, rather than today, where basically a young beautiful girl comes, you late, and then whatever said, oh yeah, our girl, there you go, the girl of Dokolo.
What do we need to do?
Now, what we need to do, first, I am glad that I am hearing his submission, that I have almost successfully driven the debate to the way I wanted it, because I am still saying we need the debate on hereditary in Uganda.
With no exclusions, yes, and that includes
I've done it. Yes. Because now, I was going to ask this question. If we talk and narrow it to Mozi, knowing that in all regions of Uganda, we have kind of seen hereditary. You could even say the doctor from Koboko, the son of a human, is a beneficiary. You could come to Acholi, Olanya's son.
Yes.
You can come to Lango, UPC, the Miria and the son. You can go to Tesu, the other young girl, and the Serere case. You can come to Butaleja, the Nebanda. You can go to Masaka, you find. So it is all over the country. Well, so my question is, if we didn't have Muhoozi in this mix, were we not going to debate this?
We were. And that's why we're not excluding.
That is why I'm saying let us discuss a national.
I possibly have a slightly
I give you all the benefits and I listen, but when I start to talk, mine becomes so sweet that all of you want to intervene. Does it mean yours is not sweet for me to intervene?
What do we do?
So what I'm saying is, would it mean therefore, if we are discussing a national thing, would it mean if Muhoozi had not shown interest, with all the examples I've given all over the country, were we not going to debate this thing?
We were.
Then why don't we debate a national thing, including Muhoozi? Okay,
that's
let us debate a national hereditary. That's why we need to debate that whether or not Ugandans see this as good.
Mr. Awich, you are making it appear as if Ugandans have not talked about hereditary politics before. And again, of all those people you are mentioning, none of them has run or has indicated they want to run for presidency. So and for some reason, I don't know why, when you actually take me back when I said there's a struggle to talk about this topic from your ends. I mean, why are you don't even want it to be, you want, and then also my concern, actually, my real concern about the discussion we're having. I think just a small interjection. Just a small interjection.
In a minute, in less than a minute.
Yeah. So I really wonder whether you really honestly want to take this a little more seriously, because you insist on dwelling on the members of parliament, or people have chosen to participate in members of parliament, and indirectly justifying the hereditarism that after all, other people have been doing it in other regions. I told you we could be here. He's laying ground. So can you speak to that? Why are you here laying ground for further hereditarism? Why?
For me, rather than limit, for me, I'm broadening.
For
example, I was even going, in Acholi, originally, the leadership of clanship is not hereditary. Do you know that even now it is penetrating to clans? So why don't we discuss the general hereditary trend in the country? Is it good? Is it not good? Because in fact you are going to have, even in churches, like Church of Pastor Iga, the son has inherited. You are even going to have judicial officers. going to... So me, rather than narrow the debate, I am saying widen the debate to say the pros and cons on hereditary. Is it okay? Is what do Ugandans say and what? So that we have a broader debate.
But we
okay?
can,
If you narrow it to one, then you are going to miss out aspects in clan hereditary. You are going to miss out tendencies in judicial office hereditary. You are going to miss out tendencies in church hereditary. You are going to... So to me...
we have had enough time on the theory. Can we be more practical and deal with the real cases in Uganda?
If we don't do this, then we are missing the point. Then we shall not drive home the debate on a national perspective and on national corners on all this. So I am strongly saying we interrogate the topic in general terms. And I'm warning you, if you do it in isolated case as you want to zero on, then you're going to miss out this effect in the judiciary, in the churches, in everywhere,
Because time is running out. So in the general sense, all of those cases that you have mentioned, all of them, including MK, that's why I'm saying we don't need to be exclusionary. All of these issues that we have had, how do we move out of this? What do you think we should do?
First, how we move is what we have started, by sharing to the public, to bring problem identified is problem half. The discussion in the media or in the public should be, do we see this as a emerging trend? Is it in all corners? What do we do? By identifying, by discussing is one step in the right direction. Then Ugandans will say, as I told you, that even candidates benefiting from that are hesitant to identify themselves. Then the consensus will be developed. So that whoever will offer himself, whether in a Koboko, in the name of son of a human, the people will now have developed consensus and say, no, you're a son of a human, right? But we're judging you on your own. Or we don't want that. And now if you think it will metamorphosize to a piece of legislation that you think should be, then the lawmakers will see. But by discussing this, is a right step in the right direction. Whatever will come, problem identified is problem half. But I am saying we must look at it in a national perspective. Narrowing down will make you miss the point, and nobody will be interested. You put a general thing.
I don't think. Let's not also give people an impression that anyone is here to narrow down anything. But we all know that for you to process knowledge, no one ever said actually that. You are the one who is trying to push the narrative in that direction. So, but you see, if we come here and we keep speaking in generalities, and then we make general statements, I mean, if you are going to, and if you talk about, if you talk about dissection, if you have to dissect an issue, so you go, so you, for instance, you spent a lot of time talking about the members of parliament, that you did very well. And so I had expected you, and went to clans, and that you did well. I had expected you, even churches. Now churches. Now I thought after having covered those, then you say, by the way, we have this current, actually it's not even, but it's a critical one. We have this now current issue of the presidency in the history of our country, of a leader who Ugandans actually are seeing him process his own son to repress him. And I think this is something we need to speak against. So, but like I said, it's very difficult, I can imagine, from your end to address it, but it's understandable. But seriously, let's still
also conclude on what we need to do as you conclude all together.
Good.
In like 2 minutes.
I think as a people, we have quite a number of options. And these options stem from the fact that I think God, in his creation of humanity, gave us this immeasurable mind. The mind is so, that's why science keeps thinking that most of us die when we've used less than a quarter of our brains. And so the first approach, I think, is a free, and that's why I was insisting, if you noted in this engagement, for me, I kept insisting on an open, on a free discussion. So I was saying my brothers should be free and talk about this, because and I know this is not just about today. It's all over. When you meet Ugandans who are part of the current regime, I mean they have a challenge to talk about this. So I think one step forward is to appeal to everyone, discuss this openly. Take it as a national matter, not a partisan matter. And look out for the opinion leaders. So I hope that the religious leaders will be able to speak about this. I hope that the cultural leaders will be able to speak about this. I hope that General Tafile's approach will also encourage the other leaders to say, but wait a minute, where are we headed? Because I know for a fact, and I know Ugandans actually also out there believe this.
As you conclude, sir.
Yes, as I conclude, that unless this is addressed now, that what is about to transpire in this country, we will all look back later and say, how I wish I could have done something about this then. So let's do it now and not wait later to make this statement of how I wish I had done something about it.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Awich, sorry.
I'll give Awich my one extra minute. I'll give my 1 minute. But just
Thank you so much.
But to say this, that just to conclude and for the collateral purposes, that whereas what might be perceived to have started with Baba Miri are quite clearly stated the circumstances of the time. And at the time, it was also very interim. And from a national perspective, nobody in UPC controlled state power, and nobody in UPC had monopolized state power, and all the resources that it came in 2005. If anything, we were now the weakest link because we had been broken to the weakest link by NRC since 1985. And number two, in Jim Akena's case, to put it in context, Akena indeed became a member of parliament in Lira municipality, and to be fair to Jimmy, he did not even inherit that seat from his father. So just for clarity purposes. Number two, the fact that Akena now controls Uganda House, actually controls it illegally, and credit to this guy's judiciary, the Supreme Court only in October confirmed as a matter of authority, from authority perspective, that Jim Akena is never president of the party. So Jim Akena has never been president of Uganda Post-Congress. So his imposition and his few friends must not be contextualized broadly with it to represent UPC and UPC's interest, nor should it be representing the broader national question of Uganda. Okay. So going forward, I think Gerald is right that we need to be able to have a national debate. I have been pushing for this for the last 5 years. We need to be able to do so, but we need to do so with confidence. There are some nuances, Gerald and Comrade Awich, where sometimes you engage with young people, once you bring the Muhoozi thing, people want to say, oh, the fear thing. I think, as I said, it's too important for your future, you guys, to let go. And it's too important for the direction of this country in 100 years' time to be left to fate. So Uganda should be able to have an open, honest conversation. But I hope finally that people in NRA, the main 1 minute is for you, people in NRA are able to wake up and concede that it's a conversation that needs to be had, and somebody will be courageous enough, like Otafire, hopefully people like yourselves, to say to Mr. Museveni, it is not too late for you to reorganize this thing and make sure that we give opportunity to others. This guy is already very rich, very powerful. For generations to come, they're unlikely to get poor. They should just leave the space.
Okay, thank you so much.
My comment is just that one, and it is not true that you said Gerald is the one who inserted the national debate. It is me who
I beg your pardon.
that the debate should continue or should start. Yeah, but also in that, let us broaden the aspect to a national thing. And two, that he who seeks equity must come with clean hands. All the actors who have done inheritance should come clean and say, this is what I have done and I don't think it is good. Finally, if Muhoozi comes up, he comes up in his own right as an ordinary citizen. Then he will have to demonstrate to the voters how competent he is. Right. And I would have no problem with this coming.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
And I told you he was building ground for the prince.
An emphatic conclusion.
Yeah, so the conclusion has been As you can see.
Emphatic and
But you
definitive.
could also see how humbling it was that he said it with a lot of, yeah, because his heart,
Do we start the debate again?
his heart,
Do we start the debate
his
again?
heart
We need to
really
revisit.
says something, and his words are saying a different thing.
No,
But
okay.
This panel must
Thank you,
revisit
thank
as
you,
a
thank
panel.
you, thank you so much. Thank you all for making this time particularly to speak to Ugandans about this kind of issue. I must also say that this platform is one that is largely followed by young people, and the biggest population at that. So I want to thank you, because then it sort of speaks to us and what things have transpired with the perspective of history. We can try to look at how better we need to make our societies moving forward. I thank you all for making the time. Thank you so much for speaking to us about this very important issue. Very likely, maybe in the future we'll have to revisit it and see if we can move it another inch forward and see what better we need to do moving forward. Thank you so much. And everyone else was following online. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to read some of those comments, because as you can see, we had time that we had to maximize, and the discussion was very important. Thank you so much, Lillian, for being on the camera, Arnold in the control room, and everyone else was made efforts to make sure that today this conversation does happen. Have yourselves a very good night.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.